Hey everybody, it's Jean Christensen, and I just wanted to take an opportunity to talk about an issue that I see frequently happening with supplier diversity programs that is having an impact on diverse suppliers. So first, I want to just applaud all of the companies out there, all of the government agencies that are really working so hard. And I want to just shout out all the supplier diversity people who are out there doing this work because there is so much work to do in helping to connect small, local, and diverse suppliers to opportunities with government agencies and large corporations. This is my life work. And I'm coming to you today because I want to create an awareness around what happens when small, local, and diverse suppliers don't get paid on time. So I'm sharing this information again from the perspective of I want companies to understand what happens. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, this is a problem that you've heard before, and that the answer to this, to the solution is for small, local, and diverse suppliers to make sure that they have a line of credit, which I agree with. And I think all businesses, in going into the marketplace, know and understand the importance of having a line of credit. Now, the access to capital conversation for small, local, and diverse suppliers, I'm gonna take that off the table at this moment in time, because I think we're all very much aware of what the issues and challenges are in that regard. So, for the purposes of today's discussion, I'm going to set the framework for the discussion that we know that small, diverse suppliers should have a line of credit, and that we do. Okay. So when you have a line of credit with a bank, accounts receivable that are older than 90 days become less and less desirable. In fact, there are some banks that will not finance them at all. And so what I'm talking about is situations where I personally am experiencing this right now, and I am well aware of many small local businesses that have accounts receivables beyond 60, 90. I know some folks that have outstanding receivables for a year, okay? Because of the complexities around how do they get paid, what needs to be done, so on and so forth. So the response to the firm should have a line of credit is appreciated, but at the end of the day, a line of credit is not sufficient to address the issues for small businesses that are facing challenges, with accounts receivables that are over 90 days old. Because any banker will tell you that those receivables after 90 days become less and less desirable. Okay, that's number one. Number two, if a small business is fortunate enough to have this line of credit and they are able to sustain accounts receivable beyond 90 days, what's happening to that business is that they are not able to grow in the manner that they would have been. The older those receivables get, the less credit is really available to them. And if they are in a position where they do have to go back to the bank, it can be very costly. So I want to just address the credit issues, okay? The second thing I want to talk about is credit worthiness in general. When a bank is looking at a business, if they're seeing consistent receivables over 90 days, even if the owner has great credit, the likelihood of that business being able to continue borrowing is it's going to be challenging. So again, I want to just address that from the perspective of, if the business has a line of credit, they're still at risk. If in fact the government agencies and the large corporations that they're working with are not paying them on time. I think this problem becomes exacerbated when you're looking at prime and subcontractor relationships as well, because now it's a ripple effect. All right. I think there's also, the market needs to understand that in many cases, when a large corporation is looking at whether or not they want to do business with a local and diverse suppliers, in many instances, they might have those businesses submit financials, submit their past performance, submit, information as to whether or not they have adequate cash. And we talk about this all the time in my capacity building classes, that the business has adequate cash to support the contracts that they're looking to get. So again, if you consider that a business has a line of credit, that line of credit is now maxed out because they're not getting paid, that business cannot grow. So the longer those receivables are outstanding, the bigger this problem gets for that small business. And again, we're talking about a company that is, doing their best. This problem is even greater for a company that does not have a line of credit, okay? Because that company is using personal resources, or they're literally robbing Peter to pay Paul in order to sustain their business, okay? Some of the things that you might want to take into consideration. So again, we're talking about a business that cannot grow because they're not going to be able to produce financials that show that even with the line of credit that they have sufficient cash to run their business. And I know a lot of people might be thinking, well, those businesses should increase their profit margins. Sometimes it's almost as if the response I hear is that, well, that business is not doing things correctly. And I just want to, again, raise the awareness around what's happening from the small business perspective if they are not able to collect their receivables on time. Now, the other thing that happens if a small business is unable to collect their receivables on time is that they're not paying their vendors, their subcontractors, and their suppliers on time. And I can tell you from personal experience, my entire team consists of local employees and other local and diverse suppliers. Because as we obtain contracts with our government clients, we always look for ways to expand and share those opportunities with other small businesses. So that, again, non-payment of a small business has a ripple effect, not only on the small business that's being affected, but again, it could be affecting their ability to pay their suppliers. I also think there's a compliance issue that starts to bubble up the longer these receivables are outstanding. And it starts with the small business starting to experience stress around, can they meet their obligations? And I'll give you some examples of obligations that the cracks that start to happen. Number one, payroll taxes, okay? For the business that has that line of credit, now they're juggling, they're trying to sustain and figure out, okay, which one of my obligations am I going to be able to meet? Obviously, paying employees is a top obligation, but I have seen instances where the employer will now, start sacrificing paying their taxes on time because they don't have the cash flow. And I want to just say that this is an extreme situation, but this is something that actually happens to small businesses every single day, where they have to make a decision around, well, should we pay our employees? Should we hold off paying some of our taxes in the hope that they're going to collect the receivables that they're expecting? What's happening to that business during a situation like that, because now they are in crisis, is that they're starting to accumulate tax penalties, and they're becoming less and less desirable to any government agency and to any large corporation that has a supplier diversity program, because they are now a risk. Okay. Some of the other things that I think folks should be aware of is that there are businesses that will make the decision and say, you know what, I'm going to tap into my 401k. And I have literally worked with dozens of clients who have done this and said, you know what, I'm going to wait. I know those receivables are going to come in. So I'm going to tap into my 401k, or I'm going to tap into my retirement money or other, personal resources. And again, the longer those receivables are outstanding, what you start to see is a ripple effect of things that are starting to crack within that business, because it is not sustainable for a company to do work and not get paid for 90 days after they perform work. And I want you to think about the fact that most small businesses are actually performing the work first. So they are they're paying their employees, they're paying their suppliers, then they're invoicing government, then they're invoicing these large corporations and or prime contractors while still waiting to be paid. So that accounts receivable could be a reflection of 60 to 90 days work that they've done already. All right. So we talked about credit. We talked about the impact and the ripple effect that this has on a business, on any small business. I also want to say that from a personal perspective, okay, the stress that this puts on a business is enormous. And I'm going to speak from my personal experience. Right now, I have several $100,000 that's owed to my small business for work that we've done over 90 days ago. And what you hear is, a variety of different scenarios that are happening, whether it's process, whether it's, this person didn't sign off, whether it's whatever. Bottom line is, I've been doing this work for nearly 4 decades. I saw this happen to my dad, where in one company, he went bankrupt altogether. And in the second company, the amount of stress that this produces, not only on the business owner, but on their families as well, is enormous. Because the person that starts these businesses, the average small business, when you look at who starts them and what they're doing, they're trying to create a better life for their families. And I'm not going to go with, because I can talk about all the different tracks that you see with small businesses. So again, I just want to raise the awareness to the folks out there that are working so hard to put these programs together, to start thinking about what is the ripple effect, what's happening once we get a company in the door and we're not paying them on time. All right. The stress of that scenario in and of itself, when I, as a business owner, have to think, can I pay my taxes on time? Can I pay my employees on time? Am I able to grow my business? It's enormous. And I'm not complaining about it. What, again, I want folks to be aware of. Stress in and of itself causes all kinds of issues, heart disease, repressed immune system, on and on. That's not why anybody starts a business, all right? I think it's important just to understand the impact. And then the last thing I want to say is that if any one of us asked any one of you to go to work and then just didn't pay you, just like, oh, well, the check is lost in the mail, or whatever the case may be, this, I feel, is the highest form of disrespect. It is the highest form of disrespect that you can have towards another human being, towards another. And I want to emphasize the importance of looking at these small businesses as other human beings that are just trying to do their jobs. I think not paying your vendors on time is the highest form of disrespect. And it goes against everything that these supplier, well-intended, by the way, because I am a huge advocate of a lot of these programs, but I just want to share this information from the perspective of a diverse supplier. It has to change. And my team and I have the benefit of working with a lot of great people. This is some of the work that we're doing in the marketplace to assist large corporations and government agencies with looking at their processes, looking at their procedures, and doing the work that needs to get done to create a sustainable supplier diversity program that works for everyone and that meets the goal and the intention of all the work that we're doing. Nobody creates these programs and then decides, you know what, we're just going to drop the ball. So there's a lot of work to be done. And again, I want to just say that, change does not happen overnight, but this is a big issue for a lot of small, local, and diverse suppliers. So if you're a supplier diversity professional, if you are someone that is, in charge of one of these programs, I implore you to really take this matter seriously, because it's killing us. And quite frankly, I don't see any reason for it. I think now that we're aware of it, that we can work together to solve this problem. So I want to thank you for your time, and I want to thank you for listening to me today.